Hi, I'm Steve Hopkins, and this is PongNow, an interview series discussing table tennis with some of the best players and personalities in the sport. It is my pleasure today to welcome Marv and Caron Leff. Marv played as a junior in Illinois. He was state champion junior player, and at age 15, won the All-American Champion Adult Championship as well. He later moved to Florida, where he had great success in his age group, playing in tournaments and coaching. Caron helped found the Miami Table Tennis Club, was a top player in Florida in the 60s, has served USATT in a variety of positions, was co-founder of the Florida Table Tennis Hall of Fame, and in 2006 was the first woman appointed as ambassador of the ITTF Museum. Welcome to PongNow, guys.
Hi.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I've said this a few different times. The goal of these interview series is to capture some stories. So I'm going to do my best to lead and then get out of the way and listen to you guys tell us a little bit about your lives, and specifically your lives in table tennis. And with that in mind, I'm going to start by steering this way. When did you start playing?
Well, I started playing in 1948. I was in Chicago.
All right. And tell me a little bit about early playing and moving from being a regular American kid batting a ball around to becoming someone who could be champion of an entire state by age 15. How do you get there?
Well, I owe my involvement in getting into table tennis to Marty Prager. He saw me at a park one day and he said, "Do you want to learn how to play, kid?" And I said, "Sure." And he showed, he wasn't even holding the paddle correctly at the time. But he did change to a regular shakehand group later. Grip. So he showed me a few things on the table, and then he told me where players would go, and that was at that time the Uptown Bowl in Chicago, on the north side of Chicago. And when I went there one night and I saw 20 tables set up with all these wonderful players, it kind of like became
Your obsession.
yeah, an obsession, an addiction, something I wanted to be involved in. So I was involved in other sports. Played high school basketball, and I wrestled in high school. I ran track in the Junior Olympics. So table tennis, when I first started playing ping pong, people kind of laughed at me and said, "Oh, you're playing ping pong?" So the answer was yes, I am. And but once they played with me at school, at my high school, they knew that it was not a sport for wimps, and
Definitely not a sport for whips.
And so
And that's not our line. That's Pete May's line.
the first tournament I played in, I'm as a 13-year-old, I was now playing Alphonse Holtman in the finals.
He doesn't know any of these
Alphonse Holtman was the national boys champion at the time.
Okay.
I'm in the finals, and it was 18-all in the fifth. This is actually a good story. And Marty Prager came over to me and said, because I didn't have my own paddle, I was using his, and he says, "I've got a match. I have to take my paddle." And I said, "Well, it's 18-all. Can I use it?" He says, "I got a match now. Give me the paddle." So someone gave me a paddle to play, and I ended up losing deuce in the fifth. It wasn't a terrible loss. He was actually the best 13-year-old in the country.
And then you bought a paddle.
And then I bought a paddle eventually as soon as I could afford it. And but once you have that kind of success and not really knowing what you're doing, but strictly going on, let me say, innate talent, you would say, okay, maybe I can go a little further. And then I, of course, went on to play juniors and won the junior championship. And then we had a novice group of tournaments throughout the year, 15, 20 novice tournaments in Chicago. And yeah, I think I won that 3 years in a row. and Steve Isaacson was a few years younger than me, so he played in younger events, as he called it, the midgets. Only he wasn't a midget. He's a big guy, and I'm a little guy. I'm the midget. He's the big guy. But he forget Steve now. But after that, playing in the tournaments I played in and moving, winning the state championship and then winning the men's All-American, I left there and moved to Miami after high school. And then
That's where you met Lance.
yeah, and that's where I met Latsy at an exhibition, and then we became friends. And then I heard I was still playing with hard rubber, and I heard that they were having a men's state championship in Orlando. And they said, you ought to go. And I said, all the way to Orlando? That's like a 3-hour drive. And so I went, and I went with my friend Tommy Cohn, and we played doubles. And they seeded 16 players there, and I was not one of the seeds. And I played in the finals the previous state champion and won in 5 games.
His name was Ray Mergliano.
Ray Mergliano was state champion then, and he
lives in California.
and I never saw when I left Chicago, Sponge had not come in, and so when I played in the state tournament, everybody played with Sponge except me. I was playing with hard rubber, and
he
it
won.
was interesting. Yeah, so I won, and then I came back. That was in '65, and then in '66 I went back and played with hard rubber again and won it again. And then went back with Sponge in 1988.
23 years later,
and won it again.
Only this time with Sponge.
With Sponge. So.
All right. So you were winning Florida state championships then?
Yes.
All right. And wasn't like Laszlo Belic in Florida? Weren't there really good players in Florida? Where were some of these guys?
He was getting older then. He was probably in his 60s then.
Okay.
And so it was.
He played to have the players. What happened?
I've never played Latsy in a tournament. We've never met in a tournament.
Okay.
But he was a wonderful player. Other than that, I played in I don't know.
U.S. Opens.
I've won I think 8. U.S. Open doubles championships in various age groups. Last tournament I played in was 15 or 16 years ago. I played in the 70s, so it was 15 years ago. I won that. And they're not, I'm going to play again in the over hundreds. I like to space out
his wins. He likes to space out the wins.
And
right, yeah, go ahead.
The last one was the over 70s in the U.S. Open. I won that.
All right.
And I won the doubles with, I think it was George Braithwaite also, that tournament.
Well, you played with George. You played with...
with Bogdan Davidovich, Dick Hicks.
All the players that you know the names.
A lot of different players.
Yeah, sounds like you've smartly selected some doubles partners as well. Yep.
I kind of think it was the opposite.
All right. So you've described your Florida Hall of Fame career there. All of that makes perfect sense. But let's back up a little bit and include Caron a little.
Okay.
When did you guys meet, Caron, and when did you start playing?
Well, we met in we got married
in 1960, I think.
60. And I'm really, to be honest, I'm not a player, but I took lessons from Marty Prager. And then the only tournament that I ever won, because I know that there's 2 sides to every sport. There's organizers and there's players. And without both, it doesn't work. So I became an organizer. I did win a tournament of mixed doubles with Richard McAfee many, many years ago. And I even have the plaque to prove it.
He's a pretty good player too.
I realized early on I'm not a player, but I got involved in the making it happen. And I still work with Chuck Hoey at the International Table Tennis Federation Museum. And how I got involved in that was, do you remember Jimmy McClure?
I do.
Okay, what when Jimmy passed away. He lived in Cape Coral and we live in Fort Myers. I got a call from Steve Isaacson telling me that Mrs. McClure did not want to keep the things in her home. So I got a bunch of table tennis players here in Fort Myers to go to his home, and we took what she did not want, which included trophies and all kinds of things, and it was a 2-trip deal. Then I sent some of the things to Chuck Hoey, who was in Switzerland at the time. But you may know that the ITTF museum is in China now.
Okay, I didn't know it had moved. I actually thought it was still in Switzerland.
No, it moved from Switzerland.
Yeah, from Switzerland.
It moved from Switzerland.
I think it's in Shanghai now.
Shanghai. It's in Shanghai where nobody can go now.
Yeah. They built 100,000 square foot museum.
Look it up. ITTF museum.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
But
and what I did with Chuck Hoey was, for 10 years we worked. Well, I'm still working with him, but for 10 years he built the museum in Switzerland. In other words, he put all of the.
And you donated a lot of stuff.
And I donated a lot. Oh, yeah. Because what are you going to do with a lot of table tennis stuff if you don't have a place? So actually, we do have another place here. This is our home, but we do have a place here where we play. So my thing was always making it happen, and the history. I absolutely love the history of this sport, and I think it's so fascinating. We were friends with Marty Reisman, both of us. Who else? Let's go down the list.
Well, Marty, Dick Miles.
Dick Miles. I mean,
Latsy, Sam.
We were in Miami, and everybody wanted to come to Miami.
Yeah.
And we were there, maybe the only ones there at the time. And actually, let's go back for a minute. I founded the Hall of Fame, the Florida Hall of Fame, with Therese Terranova.
Okay.
And Therese is still very actively playing in Broward County, Florida.
She's teaching there.
She's teaching there now.
Yeah.
But she did 2 years ago go to the Worlds. I mean, the woman is in a wheelchair and she's kind of amazing. She's my hero, actually. Anybody that I admire in my life, I admire her. Great determination, guts, and she's a hell of a player.
Well, she's won the world. She's won the Olympic gold, so she
won
Paralympic.
The Paralympics, the Olympic gold, silver, and bronze, and the worlds. And she doesn't stop. She's kind of an amazing person. She's totally amazing, and she is, as I said, my hero.
Yeah, she's wonderful. This is and there have been some. Didn't you do an interview with this Dr. Daniel Amen?
Amen.
He's a psychiatrist, and he was being interviewed, and we watched it, and he's come to the conclusion with all the data and testing he's done that table tennis is the #1 physical and mental activity in the world. There's nothing that compares to it as far as preventing Alzheimer's,
dementia,
just
the
heart, cardiac. There was also a documentary on television by some cardiologists and neurologists that hooked up people 60 and over on about 20 different tables we watched. It just happened that way. And they came to the conclusion that table tennis is the #1 physical activity and mental activity. It showed the brain cells exploding. And these weren't players. These were people that played ping pong. And they've come to the conclusion it is the #1 physical and mental activity for a human being. I don't know about dogs and cats, but for human beings, it's worked for me, I can tell you that. So we love the sport. The USATT, if I can go out on a limb, they can revoke my membership, but I guess they can. They need to figure out how to promote this sport and make people in this country aware. And one thing they haven't tapped into that I have suggested, but I don't know if they need hearing aids or what the story is, but they need to make contact. Maybe you can make some headway. They need to make contact with the major corporations in this country that all, underscore in all caps, all, have ping pong tables in their companies, and these people play against each other fiercely. They love it. They don't need to be players, but they love playing. In fact, I was coaching the executive director of HIPAA, which is the medical end of all the, you know what that is, right?
Yep.
Okay. So he loves it. It's the greatest workout he's ever had in his entire life.
And he keeps coming back for more.
And all I can say about table tennis is the USATT needs to get their act together. They've had certainly enough time to develop, 100,000 members and not 7,500. They need to get major corporations involved because they will supply the membership, bringing it up to 100,000. I mean, we can't go to a ping pong club and expect to grow membership at the ping pong club because they're already playing. So we need to let these people and these corporations know there is a USATT that lives not very well, but it's living, it's on life support. But, they need to do something. And if they hear this conversation, maybe they will, because these major corporations love the sport of ping pong because they can fit it in a room and they can bring their lunch and they can play each other and fight over who gets to 11 or maybe 21 if they're still playing at 21. They probably don't even know the game has changed to 11.
I don't think there's anybody that disagrees with you, Marv. The question on how to get from point A to point B may take another 25 years, but I think there's plenty of people that would like it. All right, let me ask you this other question. You told me when we were talking initially that one time Steve Isaacson sent you a watch. So I've known Steve Isaacson a little bit. I'd like to hear the watch story.
You want to see the watch?
Well, I want to hear about the watch story.
Well, okay. Well, he asked me, do I still have the watch that I won from winning the men's All-American Championship? That would be probably in 1951 or 50.
When you were 15.
Yeah, when I was 15. And
there was a time.
And I said, no, I don't have the watch. I never got it. He said, well, why didn't you get it? And I said, because I never went to the banquet. He says, why didn't you go? And I said, because my mother told me I had to come home and babysit my baby brother so they could go to the movies. So when he heard that, he felt bad for me. So a few weeks later, I received a watch in the mail that he sent me. And it was really
kind of a feel-good story.
It's a beautiful watch. It's a Furla, F-U-R-L-A, which I never heard of. And a friend of mine who used to be in the jewelry business, in fact, she was a customer of hers, was Liberace. She saw me wearing the watch and she said, can I see that watch? It's beautiful. And I said, sure. Here, Sonia, take a look at it. She says, well, what kind of watch is it? I said, I don't know, but it looks nice. And she said, let me look at it. She said, oh, it's a Furla. It's a nice watch. She says, not that expensive. Maybe it's a couple $100, but it's a nice watch. And of course, I couldn't thank Steve enough. That was very sweet, very kind of him, very thoughtful. And
we're very good friends with Steve today.
Very good friends with Steve.
We talk to each other on the phone all the time.
Yeah. He just sent a letter last week to us. He writes letters.
Yeah.
And he said the first tournament I ever went to, he was playing in the midgets. That was, I think, 11 and under. And I was in the 14 and under. And I was playing Bobby Wolf, who was the national champion at the time. And he said, I came over and I watched you play. And you had won that tournament, Marv. And you became my hero. This is in his letter. And you became my hero. And and I said, yes. Am I your hero now? He says, well, not so much now. You're an old man. Huh? So it was, we developed a very interesting relationship, and it has sustained over, I don't know,
50 years.
More than 50 years, because he was like 13 and I was 15, or he was 12 and I was 15. So Yeah, it's 70 years we've maintained a relationship. It's really hard
Through the sport.
for me to get that out of my mouth. The word 70 years. It's
Yeah, I now have some friends who I've been friends with for almost 40 years in the sport. It's a neat phenomenon that a lot of us share. All right, so one more question. You several times mentioned Lazzy. I think you said Lazzy.
Lassie.
yeah.
L-A-C-I.
Yeah, Lotzi was his nickname. Instead of Laszlo, he was called Lotzi, L-A-C-I.
All right, so give me some background on Laszlo Bellick and getting to know him and playing at his personal table, right?
In his home.
Yeah, in his home. Yeah.
On his back porch.
Well, other than the fact that we got to know, other than him being married and loving his wife, I think he was in love with my wife. So, and he won't deny that.
He's gone.
I know he's gone. We'll all be gone someday.
No, Laszlo was a wonderful friend. I actually used to talk to him almost every day on the phone. We were good friends. So.
And he was, like my wife said, he had won numerous national championships in all the different age divisions, and as a doubles player, he was phenomenal because
he was a lefty, and you never knew which way it was coming.
Yeah, you were always moving the wrong way against him.
All right, and Marv, you met him as a player and used to go to his house. And when you and Caron started dating, you started bringing her along. Is that how that worked?
Yeah.
That was my date.
Yes.
That was my big
She
date.
would come with me to the house, and she'd get into conversations with the various players there and people and his wife, and we just had a wonderful time. And when you meet someone like Richard Bergman and says you want to play a match, and my God, I watched him for years through different news media, and I said, of course I want to play a match. Same with Dick Miles and all these different players.
And Dick used to come down a lot, and everybody used to come down. It's Florida, who wants to be in the cold when you can be here in the heat?
Right.
All right, and Caron, this worked on you, this whole dating by just taking you to a friend's house and playing ping pong thing?
I fell in love.
Yes. Yes,
I fell in love.
She fell in love with someone who had no money at the time.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all okay. It was wonderful.
It's beneficial for me.
But it has turned out well for everybody. And how many years have you guys been married now?
We'll be married this month, the 23rd, excuse me. Wait a minute, the 17th. June 17th, we'll be married 58 years.
Which
all right.
is a...
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like nothing. It's like a blink of the eye.
That's probably a pretty good point to stop here today. So there's some neat stories in there, and I'll do a little editing and put this out for everybody. But I think folks will really enjoy hearing these stories coming directly from you guys. And thank you very much for spending time with me here today on PongNow.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve, for the interview.